One common criticism that I see made against pessimistic philosophy in general is the claim that, if you are to ask people at the end of their lives whether it was all worth it, whether they would do it all again, whether their own conception, their own coming into being, and all of their subsequent suffering was worth it, most people will tell you that ultimately it was. And they will typically cite things like love and relationships and many of these things, many of these other things that we just deeply take for granted until they are eventually stripped from us. I want you to genuinely ask yourself, what incentive do you think they have at the end of their lives, and everything is already said and done? What incentive do you think they have to be honest with themselves about this very pessimistic, very dark question, let alone honest with you, the person asking the question? There are some people that are just very blunt and honest, even when it comes to these very difficult questions. But most people are not. Most people will tell you, even if they don't buy it themselves, that, ultimately, it was all worth it. I mean, they're at the end point. Why do you expect them to confront that, to be able to accept that? I bet if you ask me that question, I will run from it. I mean, if I'm at that point, when I'm at that point, the incentive to be able to say that it was all worth it, it's just, you want to be able to say that at the end. And I hope that I am. But I have to also be honest with the very real possibility, I'd say likely possibility, that I won't have the privilege of honestly being able to answer that question with a firm, fuck yeah, it was worth it. A lot of that is heavily dependent upon luck, and I hope that I'm one of those lucky ones, but so the point of this little clip, I guess, is this is a very unreliable source. To ask people at the end of their lives whether it was all worth it, it's a very, very unreliable source of information, because many of these people who are at the end stretch, they're not going to be honest with themselves, let alone with you. Many of them will be able to honestly say that it was worth it. But even for these individuals, these lucky ones, it is also important to remind ourselves of the fact that they don't know what it is to have been one of the unfortunate ones, to have drawn one of the short straws. They could have been, but they weren't. So in order to be able to say in hindsight it was all worth it, while you have no conception of what it would have been like otherwise, you don't have a conception of what the gamble was that took place, because you're the winner. It's what's it called? Survivor's bias or whatever the fuck. It's at the end you're being able to say, well, it was all worth it. Like the person who plays the lottery for a few years and throws all their money into there, and then they finally fucking win, and it ends up producing an overall net positive return, and they're able to say, well, that was fucking worth it, but you're the winner. You can't honestly answer that question. And that's the end of this video.